Hi, my name is Rick. I'm going to be your guide today. This is my first day, so good luck. So this is a snowcat. This one's operated by the Weather Observatory. This is how they get their crews up to the top. Every Wednesday they change crews, and there are days when even that machine can't get up to the summit. It's just too dangerous up there.
So do they live and work up there?
They do.
Oh, right.
The top of this mountain has been occupied by the Weather Observatory staff since 1932. So we're starting out this trip surrounded by the trees that everybody comes to see this time of year. These are the hardwoods. And this is a mixed hardwood forest, a lot of beech, birch, and red oak. Of course, the sugar maples, which give us probably the best colors. Those are the real bright orange and bright reds. So we actually have 4 different vegetation zones here on Mount Washington related to the change in climate as we go up. Starting with the hardwoods. Won't be too long before we transition into the conifer zone where the hardwoods disappear, replaced by the spruce and fir trees. And eventually, even up at the 6-mile level where we're going to end up today, we get up into the alpine zone above tree line. So have you guys from the UK, have you been up to Scotland? Yeah. So you've seen the mountains up in that area, Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
So those mountains were once part of these mountains, the Appalachians. You know, when our
That's interesting.
yeah, so when our continents pushed together to form one supersized continent called Pangaea, we were all interconnected. Is essentially the time period that the Appalachians were formed. As a result of that collision, these mountains were thrust upward. As the continents split apart and the Atlantic Ocean was formed, part of the Appalachian Mountains ended up with you guys. So these mountains are very similar in appearance to those mountains in Scotland. They're quite old and rounded and weathered.
Much smaller there.
Yeah, they're a bit smaller, but quite old. You know, out west we have the Rocky Mountains, and if we compare the Appalachians to the Rockies in terms of age, as the Rockies were just beginning to be formed, these mountains, the Appalachians, were already 250 million years old. So erosion has reduced their size by about half.
We should have got here earlier.
We missed it by a few years, right? So perhaps you've heard of a well-known hiking trail here in North America, the Appalachian Trail.
Yes.
Essentially, it follows the Appalachian Mountains from the state of Georgia north all the way to Maine. So the trail itself is 2,200 miles long. This is part of it right here, coming out of the forest. There's an Englishman that wrote a terrific book about his experience on the Appalachian Trail. Bill Bryson.
Yeah. I was waiting for him to come out of the woods.
You're familiar with it?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with him.
Yeah. So there's a interesting explanation as to why we go through these vegetation changes on the way up this mountain. You know, earlier in the trip I mentioned the length of this road is about 7.5 miles, but the vertical climb is 4,600 feet straight up. So you can think of it in this way. For every 1,000 feet that we climb today, we've just traveled north 150 miles with regard to the climate. So the climate up near the summit of this mountain is similar to what you're going to find way up north near the Arctic Circle in Labrador. So quite a change. 700 miles, you know. So you can see how much we've climbed so far. It's difficult to gauge your progress because of the dense vegetation, but there you go. You're looking northeast. Basically those mountains out in the distance are in the state of Maine. The actual border for Maine is only 10 miles from here.
Yeah, we were in Maine yesterday.
Oh, really? Over on the coast?
Yeah, we were in Bar Harbour.
Oh, nice. So, when we started out the trip, we were surrounded by hardwoods. Let's go back to as the ice ages were ending. About 11,000 years ago, the continental sheet of ice was melting from this area. And the first trees to actually take root on the upper mountain, or on the lower mountain, I should say, were actually evergreens like we have up here. Eventually, the logging industry harvested those trees. But over 11,000 years or so, the climate had warmed and the soil had improved. So trees are competitive, and the hardwoods were able to win out and took over. So now we have a hardwood forest. Up here, it's competitive, but the evergreens are better suited to this environment. This was quite a few years ago, but I was sitting right where this van is parked to prevent cars from going on up. And walking down out of the fog was a moose.
Oh, lovely.
He got down pretty close to me, and I was taking pictures of him, and then he wandered off into the forest here. But they will come up here once in a while.
So they stopping cars from going any further than...
That's nice. You can see by these conditions why hiking could be risky up here. One of the unfortunate things about Mount Washington is because it's the tallest mountain, most hikers want to climb it, and some of those folks probably shouldn't be here. In fact, I talked to a guy this morning who was asking me where the hiking trail is. New Hampshire Fish and Game Department coordinates the rescues up in this area, and they've been averaging 2 rescues a week up here.
Your hat is it's covered in ice.
I know. It's not ice, it's rye mice.
And you've only got one eye.
Rye mice.
What sort of person are you taking me into this extreme
You
weather?
love it. You love it. Do you want me to get one of you?